Hello, we are live. Hello, Belinda. How are you?
I'm great, Ben. How are you? Or should I say Power BI guy?
That's fine. That can confuse when I'm at a conference or having a conversation with everyone who uses Power BI guy. I feel very self-conscious being referred to as a Power BI guy. It's like we're all Power BI people here, right? But yeah, I'm very well. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day. I mean, it's the middle of the day for you, I'm sure. So
Yes.
it's much appreciated. So, should we get
Oh, my
started by
pleasure.
tell us about you, who you are, and for those who don't know, get going.
Yeah. My story is not super exciting. So, I kind of fell backwards into implementing accounting software over 30 years ago. And so, that was um, that was the beginning of technology for me. And actually kind of went before that because I was in college. I was working at a Holiday Inn, and Holiday Inns at that point were just implementing computer systems internally for checking in and checking out. So I was part of that, and I gravitated. I picked it up very, very easily. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this was back when everyone's using diskettes and the floppies of 5 and a quarter. And so that was kind of how we ended up in technology. My husband, who is a big old nerd, was in a computer store, and he happened to talk to someone from Great Plains Software who was there visiting that needed installers. So hence our journey began. And as soon as, at that point, I was always really big on visualizations
Okay, cool.
for financial data because we were working with financial data. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we even had this financial package that we offered to hotels that showed them a visualization. It was kind of like a 2 to 3 week later version of a Power BI report. So yeah, we are Donald. Donald's one of my good friends. There's a lot of my Saturday morning buddies on here.
I thought
Uh,
maybe, yeah.
yeah, I guess Fernando. There's Kevin, Donald, um, Sean. Alex Powers used to be, but he got too busy for us, so he dumped us.
You've brought your entire fan club now.
Yeah. So I've always gravitated toward
Mm.
that. So then when Crystal Reports came out, I jumped on it like crazy. And then even to the point that I was in Excel, as soon as
Okay.
Excel started having some really powerful things.
Mm.
So I got involved in Power BI when it was actually a piece in SharePoint. And so it's like you used it in SharePoint Online. That was Power BI. And it
I didn't know that.
consisted
I
of,
knew like, Excel, didn't know SharePoint. That's interesting.
yeah. So, well, you would take these Excel pieces and you would publish them to
Mm.
SharePoint Online. And they had like this dedicated space, kind of
Mm.
like a SharePoint workspace. And this workspace was Power BI. That
Okay.
was version one. And then they, obviously in the background, they were frantically writing what we now know as Power BI. So,
Sure.
um, Microsoft, I was an MVP for Dynamics GP. Microsoft had bought Great Plains, and so I moved
Okay.
over. And they saw what I was doing, so they said, "Hey, you belong with us, not them." So I moved, and they were so right. So I still work with GP some. I work with its sister product, Business Central, some. But that's kind of how I got my start. And I have I always say my remarkably specific. I'm going to tell it to you, but it doesn't sound quite so specific. But it is working with the Power Platform, predominantly Power BI, predominantly in the SMB space, predominantly with GP and BC. So this is my remarkably specific, and it is much more specific than it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
But I tend to do much more financial and financial application related tools. That might include sales information and manufacturing reports, but these are some of the things I do.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That sounds, I mean, that is in no way to me a uninteresting background story. That's pretty interesting. It's
Well,
quite
we
cool.
just kind of initially we just fell into everything, and anything that intrigued us, we just kept going
Mm.
and working on. It took me. I just recently, in the last 6 months, finally convinced my husband to join the Power Platform train, and now he is
Ah,
all
okay,
excited
nice.
about Power BI. I was just telling Alex on the chat
I
before it
saw
started,
that. Yeah.
we're going to SQL Saturday in Atlanta on the 25th of February. And Alex Powers and Patrick LeBlanc are doing again their the day after the dashboard in a day. And so my husband's going to that, and I'm going to Reed Havens. These are the pre-con sessions. He's
Okay.
doing one on basically a passion topic of mine, and the passion topic it to all my SML people and even Alex, they know what my passion is. It really is about a functionality of reports and user acceptance of reports, those end users.
Okay.
And these are typically people
Sorry.
who that's okay. These are typically people who I got sidetracked. Looks like Fernando might be going to Atlanta too. If he is, that's super exciting.
That's very cool.
Um, yeah. So I need to quit looking at the chat for a moment. So um, because I'm forgetting what I'm talking about. But anyhow, so this is my journey, and my passion really is about user acceptance.
Hmm.
Um, there's so many. I see so many people with Microsoft having this idea, this concept of um, it's self-service software, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's
Yeah.
so much free content everywhere, and I'm part of the free content, and this is part of the free content. And thank you for doing this, by the way. Um,
Thank you.
as with all this free content, people get in and start working on it, and
Yeah.
miss so much of the big picture. And they also think that this is Power BI when the reality is it doesn't even fit on the screen. It's this.
That is true. Yeah.
Mhm.
I
So
understand. Yeah.
how do we get them to stay? Because I'm seeing people, like I heard a partner say to me, a Microsoft partner, they tried to show it to some customers, and customers were like, eh. And I'm like, oh, then you're not doing it right. We got to talk. We got to talk. So so many people think, oh, it's a report tool, so I'm going to replace an age trial balance, an
Mm-hmm.
accounts payable age trial balance in Power BI. And that's not what it's about at all. I mean,
Mm.
if you want to put that there and there's some information to be gleaned from it, great. But don't start with that. That's
Mm.
not the lead
Mm.
story.
Mm.
It's like starting a newspaper and making your first newspaper become the obituaries. Nobody wants to read that, right? You gotta have something, relevant and helpful.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's very cool. I'm just going to ask people in the chat. They've been saying that my microphone is very quiet, which I'm confused by. Is it still quiet? Because it should, from my side, be is relatively loud. So if someone can just give me some feedback on my microphone, that'd be much appreciated. Um,
It is a little louder than it was at the beginning.
okay,
So I cranked up my speaker so I could hear you better.
that's
So we'll see
interesting.
what
So
they
I apologize for any still. Okay, I'm going to crank it right up. I'm just going to do that, and then that should be
still
fine.
quiet-ish. So
I'm a little
yes, Donald
quiet,
Parrish, Amtrak does go to Atlanta if I am not mistaken.
but it's not unbearable. Okay, so.
Yeah.
But I can be
Yeah.
heard. This is what I'm. As long as I can
And
be heard. Sorry
yes,
about that.
much better, much better.
Okay.
And to respond to Reed, yes, Reed or to Alex, Reed Haven is, he called him a viz whiz, and he talking about some of the different options. I'm so excited
Mm.
to hear what Reed has to say. So since we're going earlier, I thought, well, I might as well
Mm.
go to something too. So I looked and I couldn't decide between, I wanted to go to all three. So I'm
Of
like,
course, yeah.
well, yeah, I know. Right? The other one is on Azure, is it Data Lakes? I think it might be.
Okay.
And so, which I was like, oh,
Mm.
interesting. But I thought, no, I need to go to my passion topic, right? And get that looked at.
Definitely. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
always where there's two things side by side, and you really kind of want to see both, but it's just not possible just to make that difficult decision.
Always the case.
Always
Always
the
the
case.
case.
Always the case.
Yeah, that you could go to a conference and the three things you really want to see are going to be offered back to back and against each other. I mean, you just know, it's going to happen that way.
Yeah.
That's just life.
To do it intentionally just to make you make these hard decisions.
Exactly, exactly. So you have to laugh about it, have
Mm.
good a good attitude, and keep on
Exactly.
going. Yep.
I was just going through all of your doing a bit of googling of your name and stuff, of course, like I always do, and finding the little bits and pieces. Um, I was very impressed to learn that you an 11-time MVP.
Yeah.
That is very impressive.
Thanks. Yeah. GP started with GP, and GP has a very tight knit
Mm.
community. And so now I feel like I have two families because now I've moved over into the Power Platform and the Power BI family. And so I remember at
Okay.
one conference, oh my gosh, it was in Orlando. It was a Dynamics Community Summit. I think it was the last one in person before the pandemic. And
Okay. Yeah.
I was standing with a group of friends from the GP space, and they were asking me if I wanted to go to dinner with them. And Reza Rad and Layla came by, and they said,
Mm.
"Hey, Belinda, we're going to dinner. Do you want to go to dinner with us?" And I felt so I was like, "Oh," I felt like I was a child of divorced parents. Which one do I go with?
So
So
it just life is just handing you the tough choices, right? Which conference to go to, which person to go
exactly.
with. It can be tough.
It can
Amazing.
be tough. So I'm pretty much I'm not someone who goes out much. I do enjoy going out to dinner with friends, but
Yeah.
I think I probably stayed in at that choice. But that was a tough choice.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Oh my God.
yeah, yeah,
Is is being an MVP so often? Does it feel a bit overwhelming, a bit tiring sometimes? Because if I go through the list of things that you do, I mean, I read it, I'm like, that is a lot of stuff. That is very impressive.
yeah.
Do you, how is it, does it feel like you, how do you keep up that motivation to keep doing these things, you know? I mean,
Well, usually it's people who just come and thank you for something. And
okay, nice.
I know so many of the people on the call, like Kristen Engel's on, he's an MVP. He
Mm,
hears this too,
mm,
and Kevin Arnold. I mean, people thank you
mm,
quite frequently, and
okay.
that makes a big difference. One of the things I've been doing, oh, really, when I moved over to 5 years ago on my MVP to Power BI, I've been
Mm,
working more on women in our diversity, all kinds
okay,
of diversity in the workspace.
cool.
I It was something I never had paid attention to, but now that I'm
Mm,
doing more work on that, and I'm seeing more and more women and
mm,
more people who are diverse, people of color and
mm,
women predominantly, those two areas, but not exclusively those two. When one of them becomes certified or one of them
mm.
gets it becomes an MVP, then that makes all the difference in the world to me. So
Nice.
that totally motivates me more and more. It's also becomes very addictive too.
Okay.
Presenting becomes very, very addictive,
Mm,
um, and another person that on the call, like that is super a big reason, for example, that I do it and continue to do it is I have this great Rolodex file, and I know it ages
mm.
me to say that, but a contact list is the better way to say it. Like being able to hang out with Alex Powers and talk to him and get his ideas and
Mm,
and just knowing him, and I could email him if I wanted to, and I feel relatively confident he would email me back. He's probably laughing right now going, "Oh, no way, Belinda." But I feel relatively confident he would email me back. But being able to access people like this is
mm.
I don't know. It's definitely
That's quite
motivating.
cool.
But a lot of it becomes addictive. I love
Mm,
doing training classes, so I do a lot of training for in my MVP area, that
mm.
working with people of diversity predominantly, as I mentioned,
Yeah,
and retraining
that's amazing.
some groups like Tech Fluent, who is out of Minneapolis. That was a direct result of the whole George Floyd incident, and really
Okay,
trying to work with people. We work mostly with immigrants, and that has been unbelievably rewarding,
it's amazing.
working with that kind of training. And then the women's group, I'm one of 5 women who lead the Power BI Women's Meetup group.
It's brilliant.
Also 2 Microsoft employees, Kelly Kay and Denisha Malone, and
Oh,
then
yeah, okay.
2 other people, one an MVP for Excel, Jackie Chiatti, and then Deborah Jones out of Canada, who should be an MVP. We have almost 900 members in our group,
Wow.
and we provide sessions to them on average twice a month. And so it is a lot of work, but it's super rewarding when someone gets a better job or
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
speaks up that you've never heard speak up before. So those are the things that you kind of get excited for. And part of it with me is that I mentioned I wasn't really aware of being, you know, a diverse person in the room as well, much as I should have. I mean, I would look around and still today I go to events where I'm the only woman in the room, but I
Okay.
would look around and go, I'm the only woman, and I
Mm.
wouldn't think much about it.
Yeah.
And another MVP who is a dear friend of mine, Steve Indo, he's a Business Central MVP. We were at the
Mm.
MVP summit, and he asked me and another female, like, where are the women? And we're like, what do you mean? We're right here. We were having lunch with him. We are like, we're right here. And he's like, no, at the conference. And I really started thinking, wow, there are a
Mm.
lot of women who are missing from this
Mm.
space. And then Ree Merritt from Microsoft. We were both at SQL Saturday, Power BI SQL Saturday in Boston, and she was doing like the opening session, and she was talking about diversity, and then she
Mm.
brought up people of color, and I looked around, I'm like, dang, we're missing everywhere. So that
Mm.
it was those 2 people, Steve and Ree, and those 2 conversations that made me say I should be doing something better. I shouldn't just be looking and go, oh, I'm the only one, or I'm one
Mm.
of 2. I should walk up to that too and just say, oh, are you enjoying this session? Or at least make them feel welcome.
Yeah.
And so I think we all need to do that. And so those kinds of things have really led me into focusing on them and talking about them. And that's a big part of my MVP. My
It's
MVP
amazing.
work is with them. Yeah.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, so
Also,
that's my MVP goals. User adoption is my goal. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So,
Mhm.
but it's nice that you brought that up because it's actually top of my list for topics to discuss. Written there, Power BI women. What is it? What
Mhm.
it's about? But we've already touched on that. You've
Yeah,
told us.
it's
So
our
very
big thing
cool.
is it's a safe space. It's for
Yeah.
any female or anyone who identifies as a woman.
Yeah.
We It's very unfortunate we do not let men in, and they always leave it to me if a man or someone who identifies as a male submits that um, they want to join our group, then they always leave it to me to write them and say, no, you can't join our group. But I explained to them, and
Mm.
at first I thought, well, why don't we let men join? I don't care if men join.
Mm.
But then at one meeting, because we always say this is a safe space.
Mm.
That's the beginning of every meeting. This is a safe space. Say whatever you want. I've actually heard women say as they speak up and talk, since this is a safe space or being a safe space, then I realized then there does need to be a place where they could have a voice, because not
Mm.
everybody was raised the way I was raised,
Yeah.
that you know what I had to say was important, and and not everyone, for various reasons, and it's not a negative thing. So a lot of times it's a cultural thing,
Yeah.
and so and even if you were raised in your family, oh, you have a voice, but out in
Mm.
public, culturally, you need to not have a voice. So
Mm.
I need to remember there are a lot of people like that. So
Yeah.
yes,
That's
so it's a good thing. And so, like, I mentioned Reza Rad. Reza Rad signed up to join. Layla's a member, and I had to send him an email saying, I love you, but you cannot be a member of our group. I'm
rejected
so
Reza.
sorry.
Okay, I like it.
It broke
See,
my
also
heart. Yeah.
Christian also clearly wasn't that offended. So there you go. He
Yeah.
applied, couldn't
Yeah.
get in.
Yeah.
They all seem to understand. True,
This is
actually.
good.
You can make a whole session about diversity inclusion. That's a very good point, actually.
Yeah, I have a lot of sessions that I do at different events. One of them was the story, "The Only Woman in the Room."
Mm,
That's the name of the session I frequently give because it's very different, and um, I cannot imagine a person of color being in there, and how difficult it must
mm,
be to be the only one in the room. So
mm,
I have occasionally, if I'm at an event like a user group, a local user group, and I see someone of color present or even have a small section, if they even slightly impress me, I have summoned up the courage to reach out and send them a message on the sly and say, look, um, if you're
nice.
looking for a mentor for speaking more, I'm deliberately picking you because not only did you impress me, but
Mm,
you're a person of color. And please don't be offended by that, but
mm,
we
mm.
need more. You know, we need
Nice.
more
Mm,
good people of color who are standing up and showing the world how powerful their voice is as well.
very
So
impressive.
yeah.
That's actually maybe also an interesting point from Jeff that's just come up with that. From the outside, he's talking, of course, from the outside. The Tableau community seems more diverse to me from the outside. Put it down to a stronger focus on design over tech in that platform. Hopefully for Power BI ends up there too.
That is
Interesting.
interesting, and it's what's really odd to me is like if you go to some of the Microsoft events,
Yeah.
the Dynamics family, the ERP systems and CRM
Mm,
systems, whatever you want to call the individual elements of those seem to be much more diverse as well, at least when it comes to women,
mm,
than
okay.
than the more technical. I hate to say more technical because some of those are very technical. So don't get me wrong on that.
I
But
know what you mean, yeah.
sorry to my friends who are in those areas. But the ones that are much more developer oriented, should I
Mm,
say? And like even Business Central, for example, I see women in the group and I see women speakers. But there is this event that they have once a month, the developers. It's
mm-hmm,
called the Barinar. It's someone out of Poland who runs it. And I go to that. I haven't been in a while, but I used to go regularly every month. And there were a lot of times I was the only woman there
mm,
in 2021,
mm,
2022.
mm.
And so it, the more developer-ish, and that is my word, developer-ish, um, it seems to be much more white male predominant
Mm,
and Asian male predominant,
okay.
and than any place else. So we need more people of color. If you don't include people of color with Hispanics, then I'm going to include that Hispanic people as well, and women for sure, members of the LGBTQ. And you can't always tell if someone is differently abled, but we definitely need to open up the space for people who are differently abled,
Mm,
and make that very aware. I talk, especially when I do a Canvas apps class, I talk about what parts you need to really work on for the differently abled than not. And in the case of Power BI, I talk a lot about color themes because
mm,
1 in 11 men are colorblind. And
yeah.
if you're, chances are, if you look in your office and you count the men, think about how many are colorblind. And so many of them don't even say that they're colorblind. So you have no way of knowing. And so just imagine being a CEO and getting the dreaded pie chart, and it's just nothing but a gray circle,
Yeah.
right? There's no lines, no
Yeah.
division.
Yeah.
It's like, here's the breakdown of our sales. Okay. So I keep imagining that in my head. So I
Mm,
think those things are incredibly important.
yeah.
Um,
True.
Megan Longoria does an
She
unbelievable
does.
job sharing information about accessibility. So bravo to Megan.
Yeah, I didn't realize how bad I was at accessibility until I started reading and looking at some of Megan's stuff, and I was like, oh, I need to massively improve. I
You
also
know,
got a DM from someone on Twitter once to say, oh, I've looked at this report, it's really helpful, but can you change this? Because it was kind of, the conditional formatting with the circles,
mhm,
green, orange, red,
mhm.
and I never thought about that, you know. So it's yeah, it's massively important to have some kind of representation in that regard. Sure.
Microsoft has one accessibility tool that I use every day,
Okay.
constantly throughout the day, and it has helped me dramatically. So in Office, Outlook, Excel, even, there is a speak, and I add it to the command line. And so I use the one in the browser a lot too, but when
Mm,
I type an email, if I read it back, I'm someone who frequently leaves out words.
mm,
Um, and so if I read it back, I replace the words in my head. So I don't notice that I'm missing the word the and on and whatever.
that's so often, yeah.
So I will highlight it and play it back,
Mm,
and I can hear it. I
yeah.
hear it, and then I can easily fix it. So I use it a lot in Word. I use it
Mm,
in Outlook, and it has made the world of difference. It also enables me to focus a little more.
mm.
So,
It's a good
and
tip.
on what I'm paying it and what I'm, working
Mm,
on at the time. So, yeah, that's something I use a lot. If someone sends me a contract and it's in a PDF, I am copying it and pasting it into Word and playing it back and listening to it so I can focus on it and pay attention and really understand what it's saying.
that
So
makes a lot
that's
of
an
sense, yeah.
accessibility feature I use a lot. And I shared it with my niece
Mm,
who's in college now, and it's helping her. She has dyslexia. And so it's a big help for someone who has dyslexia. And so I just can't, I can't even begin to tell you how much benefit I derive from this speak.
very cool. No, it's
Yep.
a good tip. Uh,
Yep.
th- the only time I ever use that is accidentally, to be honest, when I'm using like Edge, and I'll accidentally click on the button and it starts shouting at me, and like, what the hell is that? And then
Yeah.
I realize what's going on.
Yeah.
But
The
yeah, but
browser ones really haven't, for the way I use them, they really
mm,
haven't worked out that great for me.
okay,
I do use the Edge one sometime, but I prefer to copy the text and paste it into Word if I can. And
yeah.
otherwise, I'll just use the Edge one. Yeah.
It's a good idea also, like you mentioned yourself writing the emails, because I do it so often. I even do it with tweets. I'll be writing something and I've got to read it back. And as you say, you replace the missing words because you know it
Hmm.
should be there. The
Hmm.
number of times I write something and there's a glaring error because my
Hmm.
brain is just said, yep, that's fine. And
Hmm.
I mean, I've been known to sit there on occasion and actually read out loud the stuff to myself that I'm typing.
Hmm.
And what's really annoying about that is sometimes, so my German's pretty decent, but my written German is very poor. Um, I never studied it, so it's probably like the German that a 7-year-old child would write, you know. So I'll write something in English, and then I'll just translate it in deep L, you know. But if you miss a word, it completely ruins the translation or completely changes the meaning of the translation.
Ah,
So I can go, I'll translate it, but then I'll go through and I'll check the translation to make sure. But it's quite easy to kind of overlook and make a complete fool out of yourself. Another thing that I'll do sometimes if I'm writing, I'll write an email and I'll write best regards, Ben Ferry at the end. I'll copy and paste that in, and it translates my name from the English word for ferry to the German word for ferry, and I forget about it, so I literally translate my own name, which gets quite embarrassing when I send out an email, and it's very obvious that I've used a translation tool because instead of Ben Ferry, it's Ben, and then the German word for ferry. That makes me feel quite foolish. So yeah, yes, it's important to
I
check
could
these
see that.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, tell him you go by both names.
yeah, exactly. One of the things that
I,
happens surprisingly often is I'll write an email with Ben Ferry, and for some reason they'll reply and say, "Dear Mr. Berry." Um, I don't know why. So I have people who literally call me Berry because a number of times I get Mr. Berry back. I don't know where that comes from, but it's what happens. I got a
People
question
are
I'm going to bring
crazy.
up. If that's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
From Fernando, are you going to start getting on the road again for in-person presentations more often?
Yeah. I started last October. Actually, it's funny. My husband had a shirt made, a Belinda, Ms. Belinda Allen with my logo, live 2022, with the 4 conferences I went to.
Cool.
in August or in October and September and October. So that was kind of funny. I am planning on it. I
Mm,
toyed briefly with going to Sequel Bits, and
cool.
my session did not get selected. So I said, nope, then I'm going to wait because I wasn't there. We just have a lot going on at home right
Mm,
now. But I am going to start going to a few more. Um, will slowly but surely.
mm.
Yeah, I think it was a bit much of going to 4 in a matter of a 4-week or
Yeah, it's a lot.
5-week window. But yeah, it was a lot. But it um, but yeah, I think I plan on starting
Good.
more. So we'll
Very
see.
nice.
Hopefully, I'll get closer to where you are, Fernando. Definitely let you know when I hit down Texas and New Mexico. Get closer that way. I saw
Excellent.
Jeff put something that we need a safe space for people who like pie charts.
Well, yeah,
And
that sounds about right. Yeah, we're gonna.
yeah, so I do like pie charts, Jeff, but I'm very cautious about them because if there's ever a possibility for a negative number, then I don't want a pie chart to be
That's
what's
a
used.
very, very valid point.
Yes,
Never
so
thought
this
about
is
that.
why I don't like pie charts.
Just,
Yeah.
just to be safe, just don't use them. But yes, they are. There's
Yes,
the great pie chart debate, right? Are they good?
it
Are they
is.
bad? Are they
It
okay?
is.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so for some of you that may be new to Power BI, you want to make a whole lot of people groan, just say, "Oh, you're putting a pie chart on your Power BI report," and then 3/4 of the room will just groan. Oh, um,
yeah. Just it'll like start some kind of like large battle between the different factions of the pie chart grouping. They're
And then
okay.
the 3D exploding pie charts are like, well, I always say if you work in politics, then you need 3D charts because you can change it to look any way you want it to look without changing the numbers. You just change the tilt of
Change the
it, or
angle.
yeah, and you can make it look. So if you're in politics, 3D is great. Otherwise, don't use them.
Are you adding professor to your job title? Professor of data
Yeah,
modeling.
he saw my tweet today. So I saw you're having Mike Carlo on
Yes, I am.
coming up. So Mike, he lives in Milwaukee, and he
Mm,
does for the continuing ed for University of Wisconsin Milwaukee. He does a Power BI course, an
mm,
introduction course that's part of their certification program for data. And starting my first class is Monday, I am doing the second part. And it tickles me to no end because knowing Mike and knowing me, Mike, I should be doing the intro and Mike should be doing the data modeling, but somehow we have it just the opposite. So I wouldn't call me professor, but I am doing the for the same courses. So yeah, data modeling is mine. It's not a very long course. It's basically 4 days, but
mm,
we spend an annoying amount of time on data modeling and why the star
mm.
schema is important, and how to really get your data to work out. So yeah, so it's part 2 to Mike's course.
Very
So
cool.
Mike has been, I understand, super successful at with that course. So
Very
they
cool.
were all excited to get a second one, and Mike just didn't have time to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The data modeling theme, the star schema was something that I'd never really heard about when I first moved across to this BI or Power BI
Mhm.
world. So it was interesting. It was quite fascinating to kind of learn to understand, and the challenge of actually creating it sometimes. So it's always nice to kind of read about it, and see the extreme opinions that exist on this because I was so oblivious. It's like, I think I wasn't as bad as one big table, but the importance of was something, or the impact that it can have was something that I wasn't really aware of for quite a while.
The, the phrasing of data modeling, I think, gets a lot of people confused because when they
Mm,
think of data modeling, they're thinking of building a database, perhaps in SQL Server, or building a database in MongoDB or whatever they're building their database in. And
mm,
so the whole concept of doing data modeling, I think, throws a lot of people. And
mm,
so, yeah,
Yeah.
That's quite the big deal. I know when my husband started in with Power BI with me, being a developer, he was of that
Mm.
brain thought. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't, I know how to data model. I'm like, no, you know how to build a database. And you know how to model a database. This is not
Yeah.
exactly the same thing.
Mm.
Modeling to get your data to work better within a BI tool doesn't
Mm.
matter if it's Power BI or the one that starts with a T or something else. You still got to organize it in a much more
Mm.
a functional way. It has to be done a lot differently. And so, yeah, I think that is what throws a lot of people. But yeah, so, um, and it's just fun to me. And yeah, it's just that's the most fun part to me. The visuals are probably the least fun part to me, for sure.
The visuals, did you say?
Yeah, they're the least fun to me. The data modeling to me is just really cool.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. I love taking it and molding it, and if you add in a little piece here and a little piece here, like one of the things what I do a lot with financials. So one of the things I do is I use the inner data feature to get the layout that I
Mm.
want. I don't
Okay.
pull it from anywhere else. I
Mm.
build it inherently inside of the data set. And so just being able to do that and connect it all together is just, I'm a nerd, I know, but much fun to me.
You're a nerd. We're all nerds. You're in
Yes,
fantastic company. I
true.
can assure you of that. If you enjoy data modeling to that extent, how do you feel about Power BI always having switched on by default to create the connections between the tables when you first load the data? Have I upset you?
Wow. I frequently forget to turn it off before I
Oh, yeah.
start. For the most part, on the initial run,
Mm.
I'm okay because I don't
Okay.
always. I start with a subset of the data. If I'm going to
Mm.
connect to 10 data sources, I don't connect to all 10 right away.
Yeah. Okay.
So at that point, I usually turn it off
Mm.
after I
Mm.
connect the first time. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I'm okay with it. But yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay
Okay.
with it. I think
That's
I think I'm okay with it. That one doesn't bother me that much. I know a lot of people immediately turn it off. I usually
mm.
do turn it off after I bring in the first bit of data, but um, it doesn't make me crazy. And because I do so much training, I leave like some of that stuff on, which is
Mm.
quite annoying that when I'm doing real work because I don't want to have to remember to reset everything,
It would
from
be nice if there was a global on and off though, not for every single
mm,
report that you build. Like with
right.
auto datetime, you can do it and switch it off for all
Yep.
future reports as well, but for some reason not with the modeling part.
Yep. For
Yeah,
sure.
fair enough. So,
For sure.
1 second. Here, do you like data marts? Very straightforward question. Be as thorough with that question as you as you want.
I honestly, sorry, Microsoft, I have not played with them yet. And the reason I haven't played with them yet is, well, one, I haven't had time in the last month. And prior to that, people I trust said they're looking cool, but they're not ready for prime time yet. And I
Fair
thought,
enough.
well, I have other things I need to work on. So
Yeah.
I'm going to stay out of the data marts for now. So I um, just haven't done much with them, although many of the people on the call are part of a group including the person who asked that, Fernando. "Oh, what are you guys doing? What do what
Mm,
about this?"
mm, mm.
Like last week, we got distracted with GPT, but
Oh, that's the
yeah,
yeah.
so yeah.
That's the big topic at the moment. I think I'm the only person in the world who hasn't actually used ChatGPT yet. Never.
I I tried it when we were in our Saturday morning learning session,
Mm.
and it was funny. The first thing I asked was, what's the difference between explicit and implicit measures in Power BI? I said, write a paragraph on it. And it wrote a nice paragraph and it
Okay.
was correct. And then I wrote a question about how to create DAX, and it actually gave me 3 different options for DAX, including code I could copy, which is pretty cool. And then because we were getting ready to watch that guy in a cube, I said, what presentations have been done by Patrick LeBlanc of Microsoft? And I got a nice list. then someone in the group said, "See what presentations you've done," and it said basically, "I've never heard of her." I mean, so,
How rude.
so after that, I was like, "Okay, well, I'll leave that alone."
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
You mentioned this Saturday morning, this SML Saturday morning
Mhm.
learning. Can you talk? I'm always really curious about this. I'm like where it started and what you do because I know that this is really dedicated group to this SML. Please
It
inform us.
is it is a serious group of dedicated people. So, or at least 20 to 30 of us are super
It's a
dedicated.
good number.
Yeah, yeah. There's probably about, I'm guessing maybe 80. Someone could correct me if I'm wrong on that in the group. Some people show up and every now and then. Jessica Jolly, who is a Microsoft certified trainer,
Mm,
started it. She was watching, I
okay.
guess, SML, and I believe the story is because she invited me in later that they were like, "Oh, we need to have a place where we can, um, study together, maybe before Guy in a Cube and meet and help each other." And this group grew. And what is so amazing about these individuals is we have all become very close.
Mm,
We support each other in major ways. I mean, I know I've done this, and I know Kristen, who's on the call, has done this, and I know Kevin is on the call, has done this. When we have like a new session we're doing, we'll
mm,
ask the group, "Is anyone willing to come in and join or watch me perform this and give me tips?" And and that's exactly what happens. You had Sue Bays on before.
wow.
Sue's a regular member.
Mm,
And the team everyone shows up for each other
yeah.
and helps each other. And so we we started out more flat out learning than we did
Mm,
anything else. We did a lot of books. Um, and the books were like we would do lessons, like we did Gil Revive's book on Power Query, and we would do lessons
mm,
before and then get together and talk about what the lessons that we did. And occasionally we invite guest speakers, like we invited Marco Russo one time. That was a lot of fun. And we've had quite a few amazing guest speakers.
mm,
And and sometimes though we have no plan at all, we'll get on just like we did last Saturday, or even if we have a plan, and I'll say, "Hey, you guys, what are you thinking about Chat GPT?" And then next thing you know, we take off in that direction and we go with it. So
fantastic.
there's always something valuable that we
Mm,
get out of it, but it is a dedicated group of people who become really good friends and who are committed to each other and committed to learning. And so a lot of fun. And it's really interesting because yeah, Donna, we don't need no stinking plans.
mm,
um, it's really kind of interesting when I go on something like even this, and I look and I see my friends. I see,
yeah,
obviously people I love on there. I was like, "Yay,
that's
look at
so cool.
Kevin." And we chat with each other and we help each other and we support each other. So um, it's and people know us because we hashtag ourselves all the time,
This
SML.
is the thing. This is why it's so known. We were watching the guy in the cube, or he want to have someone on that. This I think also saw some of before. Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Mhm.
SML everything. It's just
Yep, yep, yep.
it's
And
cool.
it is it and yeah, yeah. Both Patrick and Adam know the SML group.
Mm,
Um, Actually, for Sequel Bits this year, Matthew Roche reached out to us and came to one of our meetings and was talking to us about selecting. And I know Kevin, who you just showed his name, and a
mm,
couple other people helped him with selection of sessions for Sequel Bits. And so because people just know we got this like whole method. Is your
mm.
dog snoring again?
Yeah,
We got this whole method or just dedication to learning, dedication to each other, and dedication to the community. So yeah,
that's wonderful.
yeah.
I mean, it's obviously within Power BI there is a community, but it's nice to know that there's also this part of the community that aren't just they're kind of talking and ideas actually feel close to one
Hmm.
another, and it's a really
Hmm.
fantastic thing that you can create something like that and have those connections and through something that is just at the end of the day a tool that you use for work, and then you meet new people, and as you say yourself, you're sitting here now and you have all these people who you care deeply about and have helped you, and you help them. That's just It's a
Oh
lovely
yeah,
example of what you can
they're
achieve through that sort of thing.
they're such good friends. I show up in my PJs every Saturday morning, and Kristen, who's on, he shows up. Although he makes me mad because it's afternoon, so he's sometime drinking wine, but that doesn't make me mad. What makes me mad is he's out skiing on vacation, and instead of just saying I'm not coming this week because I'm on vacation, he'll
Mm.
call us briefly and
Mm.
then scan around at the snowy mountains just to make us jealous. And so he
That's
makes me a
cold.
little unhappy. It is cold, isn't it? Yes.
Oh man, I love
And
it.
yet
What a
we still
fantastic
call him
thing.
friend. Something's wrong with us.
Love it. Oh, that's really cool. Nice group. I
Yeah.
remember the first time. I think the first time I was watching Guy in the Cube, I was like, SML. What is SML? What am I missing? I was going through, and then I think finally on Twitter or something, I didn't understand. I was like, okay,
Saturday
now I
morning
get you.
learning. Yep.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool.
Yeah. It is. It is a very, Jessica, she really did something quite amazing. And so, I can't
Mm.
can't thank her enough for that. And so, yeah.
Is she still part of the group or
She is still part of the
Okay.
group. She definitely is.
Mm.
She's there most of the time, not all the time, but yes, she is still part of the group. So yeah, she's
Very
still our
cool.
mother, so to speak. So that would make me
Very
the
nice.
crazy aunt. So
You know better than me.
But we
Uh,
but we definitely learn from each other and build on each other. Chris Wagner is also part of the group, and
okay,
Chris,
cool.
yeah,
Nice. Yeah.
and a lot of Chris's documentations he does happen because if there's no guy in a cube on a day, we'll stick around after,
Mm.
and he creates PowerPoints and things like that, and he's always gracious in sharing credit on them. And so,
Yeah.
like I'm going through one of his now
Mm.
for some sessions that I'm going to be working on his wireframing, which really is more about not just so much wireframing for Power BI, but the whole um, planning process for Power BI itself.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
look forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to a question that Jeff asked a while ago. I'm going to bring it
Okay.
up because it's Jeff's favorite question, and I would feel so rude not to bring it up. So there you go.
Okay.
Um, what's your number one missing feature in Power BI? I think it's the only question we ask every week because Jeff asks it. I
Mhm.
like it.
Well, it's coming soon, right? But it is the ability to export the nicely into Excel and easily into Excel to share that data. I see a lot of people
Okay.
wanting that feature, and I know paginated reports gives you some capabilities of that profit base
Mm.
out of Norway. It's I normally don't bring up ISV products that have additional charge, but uh, they are one of my favorite add-on visuals, and they have their product for printing. Like they do really nice work for financial statements, and uh, profit base has the ability is in beta the ability to export the financial statements in Excel. So I am like jumping for joy. I'm so excited about that. But I think that's probably the single biggest thing that I see missing now, and I'm really really grateful that they are including that in. And then I'll probably start obsessing about something else as well. So, but yeah, I think that's probably one of my favorite features. I'd like to see maybe even the matrix be a little more flexible in things we can do with it. I'd
Yeah.
like to see potentially some more of that.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah. I could
I,
agree
I
with
would
that.
think I would think so. Yeah, yeah,
I
and
think.
I'd like to see them incorporate more easy to use AI visuals like the decomp tree. I love the key influencer. It's a
Mm.
little for my typical end user. It's a little more.
Mm.
I mean, it's just like just over the line more, not a lot more, but the decomp tree is something so easy, and it
Mm.
blows people away when they
Doesn't.
start playing with it. So I think that's pretty powerful. So I'd like to potentially see more of that. So yeah.
Actually, the decomp tree is probably the best visualization that I never use because I know it's very good. Um, and I forget about it quite often. And I just think it's the sort of thing I haven't really that often had a case to use. Um, but when it's there, when I remember that it's there, and when I try, okay, let's see, it is. It's a nice visualization. And the matrix as well. I would also say that though I enjoy creating interesting visualizations and using Deneb, so I do think that the matrix is just generally the best visualization because you can display data very nicely and you can make it look very, very different just playing around with
Mhm.
the settings, the formatting, etc. So I think for me the most flexible and the easiest to use is probably the matrix. So if it could do more,
Yeah,
definitely I'd look for that.
one of my favorite things to do with the matrix is to build some DAX
Mm,
functions that allow me to do in more interesting conditional formatting
mm,
inside of the matrix itself. But and talking about underutilized, okay, so Deneb is something that I just haven't dipped my toe
yeah,
into yet.
it
Sue
can be a lot.
Bays, I know you're a big fan of it. Sue
I
Bays is
love
a
it.
big fan of it, and I need to dig into it a little bit more. But I think the most underutilized tool is the simple Q&A. And I love for new
Probably.
users to put four Q&A visuals on a single page and let them make their own dashboard. And then once
Interesting.
they get it exactly the way they want, they can pin it down and now they have their own custom dashboard. And
Mm,
I think that is seriously one of the most underutilized visuals in the Power BI deck, period.
that's probably yeah. Yeah, you're probably
And
right.
it's so simple, and you could just, just show them a few things like,
Mm,
"Hey, change this," and take
mm,
time because that Q&A tooling feature, the ability to, put synonyms on phrases and
mm.
monitor what people are asking. I mean, you can get if you just monitor what people are asking inside of the Q&A, then you're getting as a design person or a dev person, you're getting, like, free access into what they want to know.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So it
Very cool.
is, in my mind, a seriously um, underutilized tool,
Mm,
and it's pretty controllable. So,
mm.
um, and I just think it's pretty powerful. Yep,
With the
and
Q
easy
and
to
A,
do.
if end users have the option to use the ability to use the Q and A, do you think maybe it's a bit much if someone doesn't have a lot of experience? Do you think maybe
No,
it could
because
potentially
you could put
confuse
in
them
your
more?
own you could put in your own suggested questions.
Oh,
And
okay, I
so the
understand.
whole
Right, okay.
experience could be
Mm,
pick the question that interests you. And because if you put four of
mm,
them on there
mm.
and they instantly have the ability, um, they instantly Fernanda's right. I'm watching
So
the chat and there's the big one. They instantly have the ability to um, have interactivity between them as well. So they're seriously creating their own report by being able to
Cool.
do that.
I'm gonna take that tip. I'm gonna do it.
Okay,
I like
cool.
it. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
it was one of the earliest things out there. Of course, it was only when it first came out, it was only in the dashboard. It wasn't a
Mm,
visual in the system, but
yeah.
so simple.
Mm,
And my favorite thing, yeah, put your own suggested questions in, and then you're making a report that people can really understand. That like, it's like, okay, what do I want to know? Here's a list of questions. Yeah, I want to know that.
mm.
I want to know that. And then now they have this report that they can totally understand on their own. So,
Nice.
yep.
That's
Love
a
that.
cool tip. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Yep.
Are you a fan of calculation groups? Just going to bang out some questions now. I like them. That's good.
Yeah, I do like them. Yep. I
Yeah.
think they're pretty cool. I don't use them a lot because, again, working with the SMB audience, a lot of
Mm,
times they're smaller businesses getting
mm.
it doesn't always work out for them, but I do like them a lot. Yes, I do.
What about then? There's also some similar, but in the same area. Do you like field parameters? Do you use them often?
Okay, yeah, I know you're talking about the new field parameter um,
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
feature, and I have not implemented that anywhere yet,
Mm,
and I have no reason why I haven't, except that I've been a chicken running around
yeah.
chasing my tail. That's the only reason I haven't. So, um, I want to, and every time we talk about him, Fernando, on Saturday, I'm like, yeah, yeah, Philip. And so, and every time I hear him, I'm like the same thing. But I'm in my car, and listening to a
Mm,
podcast. I'm like,
mm,
oh yeah, I
mm,
need that. But I love that concept because of its simplicity.
mm.
Yeah,
Yeah. I kind of view them as kind of like a gateway into calculation groups. Kind of not like a halfway step, you know? You could
true.
do some fantastic things with them, but for those who don't use whatever tabular editor, it's much more user friendly, say, to do with the field parameters, and they are quite cool. Though probably the same to you. I maybe used them once or twice, but there are so many different things. They're new things that you haven't used before, so you have to really just intentionally go there and do it. And because of habits or time, yeah, there's so many of these things. Oh, you haven't done that before. That's on my list of things to do or my list of things to learn, and that list sometimes
I
has.
had I had Python out there for a long time, and I'm like,
Whoa.
no, no. Especially when I saw Deneb, I'm like, no.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
sorry, Python. I think you're powerful and awesome, but next.
I think was it Ruth from Kerbal? She got really into Python, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she was doing lots of like posts about Python, but I was the same. I had it on my. It was for me. It was, for a while, it was really up there, and I did it like a 1 day, 2 day kind of like intro to Python type thing, and then I did the standard thing where then I didn't use it, so then I immediately forgot like literally every single thing. Um, so yeah, and with Deneb, people you did talk about Deneb and what Fernando was also mentioning, and
Mhm.
Deneb. It's just because it was right there on my computer. I could access the documentation. I could do what I needed to do, which was to copy and paste, which made it much easier to learn. I was like, I copy and paste this, then I change that. That changes there, and you can kind of like create your own journey of understanding how these elements work together. And for me, it was much less abstract than something like Python.
Mhm.
You know, um,
Yes. Yes,
I don't know.
I know exactly. And every time, like Sue Bay showed us when she was learning Deneb, she would show us what she was working on and
Hmm,
blew my mind away. And I
hmm,
wanted to get in on it. And every time I see something that Mike Carlo does with it, just mind
yeah,
blown. And I'm like, oh yeah, Deneb, Deneb, Deneb.
yeah,
So because I know once I learn it, it's going to become a hammer in my toolbox. I have no
for sure.
question.
No,
Yeah.
but the way I use it, it's not even close to how some people like, obviously like Kerry and I'm gonna immediately forget everyone's name as I always do. But there's some of the things that I see posted on Twitter, on LinkedIn, are just like amazing. I mean, I use Vega Lite. They're using Vega to create really proper like infographic stuff, which I think is just spectacular. And now I'm like, here's an interesting bar chart. So but it's just it's a nice thing to go. I mean, I think for me going to Vega from Vega Lite, even that would from itself just be a step as well. For a while, I was looking at D3, I think it was. Some I should. I looked at that. I was like, no, I know for a fact I do not have the mental capacity to learn that. Let's just know my limitations.
Yeah, and it sounds like when I took a C# course. Um,
Okay.
every morning I was like, "Oh, I've got this," and
Yeah.
at the end of every day, forgive my language, I was like, "What the hell was I thinking?" And so that's the way it went. And I still think with my T-SQL knowledge, if I could use some of the T-SQL cheats on it, I could write something, but I would be crying, and you'd have to hold a gun to my head for me to do it, and the crying would have nothing to do with a gun and everything to do with C#. So
Oh, fantastic.
I
I
might even
saw
look
some.
and say, "Shoot me, shoot me."
Yeah. I saw on Twitter the other day someone posted and said some, I'm not sure what the context was, that HTML was relevant again, and I was like, is it? Because I haven't touched HTML since I was like 15 years old, which is a long time ago.
Well, there's a
Um,
HTML visual for Power BI, or at least there
yeah,
used
I
to
know.
be.
I could really, and I really, I mean, I made websites, of course, not fantastic websites, but decent. I can make any way around with HTML. So if that, yeah, maybe I could try that as well. HTML visual and Power BI. I don't know. But it was good fun. I used to enjoy doing it. It's probably the first thing that I learned to do with computers, other than batch files to scare my parents. So I create these batch files that when my computer started up, the family computer, as we had back then, the family, whatever it is, 386,
Mhm.
486. It would start up and it would say, there has been an error. Press the space bar to continue. And you'd press the space bar and it would just say, your hard drive has now been formatted. Nothing would happen, of course. They would just say that and it would scare my parents. And it was just such good fun for me, you know?
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
Yeah, it
Yep.
was so cruel of me.
Yeah, bat files. Well, I hadn't thought about those in a long time. Um,
Yeah. Sometimes I'll
although
go to like the
I do still have one oldie and a goodie. Um,
excellent.
this was my first PDA. This was like
Love it.
there really weren't cell phones then. This is
Mm.
a Hewlett Packard. This is the Windows one, and when I open it, I don't know if the microphone will pick up, but it creaks. I don't know if you could
Nice. Yeah,
hear
got
that,
it.
but yeah, it had Windows on it, and it actually worked with a here it is. It worked with a PC MCIA card, if
No
any of you
way.
remember those.
That's so
So
cool.
yeah, and it had a stylus. So here's the stylus. So a great big stylus, and
That's
it
amazing.
had the screen. It was funny. So if I ran Excel on it, you could probably only see about 24 cells. It was that small. And it's heavier than my phone, but look, it's like not
Yeah.
pretty. Oh, yeah, pretty. I can't get rid of this. It's just like it's a relic,
I
and so
love how
Haskell
it's.
still has the DOS version of this.
I was just gonna say that's so cool. I sometimes when I'm using Windows, I'll just open Command Prompt so I can feel like I've gone home to DOS. You know, it's like yes, this is
I
where my heart lives. You know, back when I knew what was going on.
even had a docking station, right? So, anyhow,
Love it.
yeah,
I love how
it's
you have
funny
these things on your shelf just to kind of list as these mementos.
seeing that. Yes, I love seeing it. The I always say to people that PowerShell is just DOS grown up, and some they just get so upset. It just cracks me up. It's like, okay, it's not an operating system, but come on, it's command based. That's DOS, dude.
Oh man, that's fantastic. I
We
love it.
used to help people back up by saying, okay, go to the command prompt, back up, space,
Yeah,
C
yeah.
colon. And yeah, so no, that
CD
was,
backslash etc. All that little type of stuff.
yes. Yes. And
And
I've unfortunately run into people who actually would write the word star instead of putting the asterisk or the star, or write out the word dot instead of
yeah,
entering the period. And
yeah.
yes.
So, sometimes I just have a craving to go back and go to open QBasic and play Gorillas and stuff. These the original games that I was playing when I was. I remind you of like playing with like on my dad's computer. I don't know how I find QBasic, and to be honest, I'm still not entirely what I was supposed to use QBasic for, other than playing Gorillas, which was the best game I can ever remember playing. But yeah, I'm aging myself with this conversation. I love see another QBasic fan. Maybe he knows what I
Yeah.
was actually meant to do with QBasic. There you go.
What did you use it for, Donald?
Yeah, tell us. Maybe just
Yeah.
like playing Gorillas, just like me, just like having that blue screen and then going to play it, find a game. So, so yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
it
hilarious.
was yeah, I loved. I thought that was cool. Um and what was funny is the Palm Pilot was so
Mm,
much less money. And I think people gravitated toward the Palm Pilot, even though that was so much more powerful
mm,
and full featured. And then a lot of the developing went to Palm Pilot. And I had a feeling it had to do with cost. And
mm,
so then it just completely confused me when the iPad came out at a much higher price. And everyone's like, oh, gotta have an iPad. And I'm like, why are you
mm.
getting an iPad? It's just a bigger phone. And so, of course, I have an iPad. I finally broke down. I got an iPad and I love it too. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I think yeah. When my current I have a small not a tablet, it's a small laptop that I carry around, and I have a bad history with like these like small laptop devices. The last one that I had before my current one, it was actually an amazing device. I loved it. Um, but my daughter used it to call one of her friends during, I think the main lockdown. I can't remember how many there were now, but
Mhm.
the big one went on for the longest. And she was calling one of her friends on Skype, and her friend had to go and have dinner. And my daughter was so frustrated, she grabbed the computer and she squeezed it and she just cracked the screen,
Ooh.
which she did get into a decent amount of trouble for, though, the frustration of lockdown, I did understand. I just remember she said to me, she's like, "Oh, but Dad, why?" Obviously, she's young, doesn't understand. She's like, "Why are you so angry? It's just the small one." It's like, I think you don't understand. With technology, the small does not mean the least expensive one, you know? Yeah, it's like, yeah. So like
That's funny.
she has this box of horses that she plays with, and I was like, when her punishment was like, "I'm taking away your box of horses until I can get myself a new laptop." So yeah, it didn't last very long, to be honest. I felt bad about doing bad about doing that. And then the one that I replace it with, it's the hinges broke, so I'm carrying around this laptop and I'm like nursing it because the screen's about to actually fall away from the keyboard. Yeah, so I think next time I'm just gonna get like some kind of tab or I don't know. Not a choices.
Yeah,
How old
there
is she?
are a lot of
My daughter's 9 years old, but she was 7 when that happened. So there you go. Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, this has been a fantastic chat. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah, there's things that I was going to bring up which I didn't, but I don't care because everything that we spoke about I enjoyed very much and it was very informative.
Mm.
And I'll simply say thank you very much for joining, for taking your time out. It's been a lot
Thank
of
you so
fun,
much for inviting me. I'm
for
quite
sure.
honored. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. And for everyone in the chat asking all the questions, as ever, very grateful. And to the SML crew and everyone else who's not in the SML crew, thank you very much for joining. And
Mm.
yeah, wherever you're in the world, enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.